India is gearing up for a general election in spring. Voters will cast their ballots in April and May. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Hindu nationalist BJP party is widely seen as the favourite. His 9 years in power have seen strong economic growth and an increasingly assertive foreign policy. But critics say he's consolidated too much power, restricting the media and the judiciary and encouraging religious divisions. The main opposition is the Congress party, led by Mallikarjun Kharge. It's part of an alliance that has struggled to unite on issues including unemployment, inflation and religious persecution. DW's Adil Bhatt explores a growing factor in the election, that of social media. To reach voters, parties are counting more and more on social media influencers.
In the deserts of Western India, Shravan Patel, a social media influencer, is booked for the next few months. His commissions are mainly coming from the Indian National Congress Party, the main opposition party to the ruling BJP. It was Patel's passion for wildlife conservation that first got him started in the business. After picking up more than 400,000 followers on his social media account, he realized he could make a living as an influencer. He now charges some €200 per post. Today, Shravan is producing videos and reels promoting a Congress party welfare scheme. He is filming a group of women working in an employment program that guarantees villagers in the state of Rajasthan a minimum of 150 days' work.
Elections are coming up, and as social media influencers, we have enough power that if we campaign for or against anyone, it can have a massive impact. It's because influencers are connected with people and represent the grassroots.
In India's harder-to-reach hinterlands like this one, people are coming online fast. Young and old watch reels and YouTube clips day and night.
We follow Instagram influencers like Shravan. He gives us really good information.
We watch news on Instagram and Facebook Reels and trust that news completely. Based on that, we also decide how to vote.
In India, influencer culture has spread widely in remote regions as internet costs fall. Many people have shifted to smartphones for quick, cheap and easy access to news and media. And that has become a major factor for political parties because winning rural voters is key to winning elections. Like the Congress, the ruling BJP has also mobilized its rural influencer campaigns, but at a much bigger scale. At the party headquarters in Delhi, these campaign workers have gathered to discuss election strategies. They are preparing a list of candidates who will be campaigning for elections this year. Puneet Agarwal is the head of the BJP's social media unit. He has held more than 24 influencer meetings across the country.
Every time we do elections, we meet these influencers from all different cities. And the best part about BJP is that we don't only connect with them during elections, we are connected throughout. If a leader is traveling to a city, they try and ensure that they at least meet some influencers.
For politicians, micro-influencers in rural areas are the new game changers for the upcoming national elections, says this analyst.
What are the influencers that matter? To my mind, they're local, vocal influencers who are not seen as routinely political. In some senses, what you're seeing as the rising tide of higher voter engagement is a result of these influencers.
Back in the village, Shravan is busy promoting another Congress party scheme. In this one, women are given smartphones with a small data package included. The trend is unmistakable. Influencers like him are becoming increasingly important to political parties as they try to shape the outcome of national elections this year.
Well, that report from our correspondent, Adil Bhatt, who joins us now from Delhi. Welcome, Adil. You indicated in your report that social media is becoming a significant source of political information in India. So are these influencers replacing journalists there?
I wouldn't say they're completely replacing journalists, but yes, they're becoming more important because they have widespread reach in hinterlands of India. Today, political parties have made social media influencers as something legitimate medium of information that helps them to disseminate information to the public. Also, we have seen dozens of top federal ministers of the ruling BJP party giving interviews to YouTubers and social media influencers. One, they choose them because they have massive reach, and second, and more importantly, they can easily dodge tough questions and avoid journalistic scrutiny. Also, what has happened in rural areas, people have already made their favorite influencers who they blindly trust and follow for the news. So in those places, somehow, they are replacing journalists, which is a concern.
Okay, but if they're dodging questions and choosing their outlets, doesn't that make disinformation easier to spread?
Yes, of course. Disinformation is the biggest concern and danger, not only in the upcoming elections, but it's also a great threat to democracy in India. So there have been enough evidence or investigative reports about how political parties run hate campaigns and trolling machinery to attack their opponents. Sometimes they post fake narratives on their social media handle to appease the voters from majority community. So you see, there are no checks and balances here. So it's actually like a loose cannon, and anyone can come up and shoot anything out there. This can have a damaging impact, especially during elections.
Right. Voting starts in April. So how do things stand at the moment?
So, Phil, if we see the domestic opinion polls, they confirm that Modi's popularity remains intact. And even some polls suggest that it has increased massively in the last few years. And these days, they're working and aiming for a much bigger electoral win for 2024. That means they're increasing vote shares and parliamentary seats. And you must have heard recently that ruling BJP party have swept elections in 3 Hindi belt states like Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, and Rajasthan. So what's happening on the other hand, you have opposition political parties, they have formed an alliance to defeat Prime Minister Modi, but because of constant fighting and disagreement on seat sharing, it's making actually difficult to put a solid fight. But what remains to be seen, if they can manage to put a good campaign that can increase their chances of winning votes or more seats, we can say. But I also want to add, experts fear that if Prime Minister Modi wins his third term, it will further polarize the country on religious lines, and there will be a clampdown on democratic freedoms.
Okay, thank you for that, Adil. Adil Bhatt in Delhi. Let's pick this up with Apar Gupta, who's founder director of the Internet Freedom Foundation. That's a digital rights advocacy group. He joins us from New Delhi. Welcome to DW. Would you say influencers are replacing journalists now in rural parts of India?
I think the density of smartphone ownership in India is considerably higher even in cities. So, for instance, I'm from Delhi, and there are about 2.6 internet connections per person as per the recorded population in Delhi. So not only in rural areas, but even in urban areas, most of the news, most of the information analysis is received from the internet. And in fact, 2 applications dominate here. The first is WhatsApp for messaging, and the second is YouTube. Given the low, cheap data access rates. So yes, to a large extent, journalism is being replaced by digital modes of media, and that can be journalism, or even just an influencer making an Instagram reel.
Right, and is there any sort of duty of impartiality on these guys and women, or can they just do what they like for 200 euros a pop?
So while there are some regulations which have been placed specifically with regard to specific sectors. So, for instance, if you're offering trading advice on the stock markets, you're prohibited from that. That's because the financial markets regulator prohibits it. Or if you are trying to sell a product, you have to disclose that you have received payment and you're placing that product as an advertisement rather than a review without payment. But such kind of regulations are largely absent from elections because the Election Commission of India only regulates candidates who contest elections, does not even regulate political parties or influencers. So I think there's a large legal vacuum which exists here.
Right. Do you see any dangers in that?
Well, the dangers are fairly obvious. Here, influencers by themselves can create all kinds of fictionalized narratives, which may have the impression of being a journalistic account of events in a local community. So, for instance, your story was saying that there are micro-influencers which target very small geographies and very small segments of population, which may be as per gender, age group, or occupation. So it can result in a lot of political misinformation, which is well-funded, well-organized spreading. In fact, it's already happening.
Right, and so do people expect these political influencers to be impartial, or do they just look at them and say, well, he's with this side and she's with that side, so we know where they're coming from, and that's what we choose to listen to?
So the larger problem is that the influencer is not only peddling political narratives. The influencer is quite often seen as a person who's, let's say, good at cooking or good at commentary on current affairs. It may be far removed from politics, and they only become a little much more active in terms of their endorsement, in terms of favoring a particular political party at the time of the election or right before an election. So there's a lesser chance that their audience exercises a higher degree of scrutiny on a person who's a travel blogger, a food blogger, or a fashion influencer. And that's the problem. People are associating audiences where people, it's a person-to-person connection between an audience and the influencer, which is not there of a journalist. So that level of scrutiny, which should be higher, in fact, is lower.
Fascinating. Thank you for talking us through that, Apar Gupta from the Internet Freedom Foundation.